what's the most important thing to save people's lives, and that's true family values. So this sermon is loosely based on Mother's last couple of meetings that she talked about, what she needs to do and what we need to do. So I thought, how do we get better at what we're doing? And I think, and the answer to me was, without a vision, people perish. Without a vision, people perish. So that's what I'm going to teach about today. By the way, tomorrow is Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, which we should celebrate. Actually, I love Dr. King. He gets a national holiday for his birthday, which he should. Right? None of us get a national holiday, but he should. And I tell you, he changed our nation and the world for the better, if you ask me. And I always say that because if you've never been chased around a neighborhood by white supremacist skinhead killers, you might not appreciate him as much as I do, right? That was my experience in the 60s. And it was dangerous, but he changed the world. So that hardly ever happens anymore, right? He changed it. Him, of all the so-called civil rights leaders, of all the various people who are against racism and all those different kinds of things, Martin Luther King Jr. is the one who changed the world. I strongly believe that, and I have evidence to support it. So I've always been curious as to how he did it. I was unfortunately a little young. I never got a chance to hear him speaking when I was a kid. I could hear the results of his speaking, but here's the difference to me. After studying his life, I've come to the conclusion that his power came from the Word of God. And I strongly suggest everybody read his book called Strength to Love. If you read Strength to Love, you will understand the power of his message. These are groups of his sermons where he would tell, why am I doing this and how am I doing this? When he went to the white oligarchy that controlled the South, he went to them as a Christian man preaching Christ, and they had to bow down to him. They had to obey him. They had to surrender because they couldn't resist the word and love of Jesus Christ. That's what happened. I'm 100% confident that's exactly what happened. So it's very important. Also, unfortunately, right now, people are really upset, and you hear a lot of discourse on what are the problems in America about race, right? Martin Luther King Jr. Had his battle back in the 50s and 60s, actually. He talked about his father's battles back in the 30s and 40s. But now, for example, this is Reverend Harry Jackson. He's an ardent Christian and also loves African-American people. Of course, obviously, he is African-American, and you can hear his sermons. He says more blacks go through stop and frisk in New York City. How come, right? Because you can hear many people say we shouldn't do that anymore. It's racist to have stop and frisk, et cetera, et cetera. But he doesn't think so, and I don't think so either. If you ever lived in the neighborhoods, right? I grew up in the neighborhoods, Logan Heights, and you understand it's necessary because people are being killed there like crazy. He says, this is Reverend Jackson, more blacks go through stop and frisk in New York City because more blacks are committing more crimes in the city. Last year, blacks made up 74% of shooting victims. They only make up 12% of the population. But 74% of the victims are the people who are killed, murdered. And that includes children, women, not just drug gangs fighting drug gangs. All kinds of innocent people are killed. 74% of the shooting suspects and 70% of shooting arrestees. He says this is not a new problem. This is what I want to explain to you. What's the problem? Is it because African-American people are somehow really violent? No, absolutely not. Many African-American people are the nicest, most wonderful people in the world, like Martin Luther King Jr. That's not it. He explains it this way. Here's what he says, and I think this is 100% true. Proverbs 29, where there is no vision, the people perish. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he, right? Without a vision, I think there's no vision in the poor African-American communities and pretty much coming to the whole United States now. There's no vision of what life should be like. The idea is we should just do whatever we want, or there's no vision. So here he says, this is Reverend Jackson. Back in 65, when the illegitimate birth rate among blacks in the neighborhoods was 23.6% and counting, then Assistant Secretary of Labor Daniel Patrick Moynihan, Democrat by the way, presented a policy analysis to President Lyndon Johnson. He warned that the black family is highly unstable and in many urban centers approaching complete breakdown, which at this point there's approximately 72 to 75% illegitimate birth rate. That means no fathers around to take care of the little children or guide little children, right? That's the only difference. That's the only difference, right? In concluding that the federal government must enact policies that bring the Negro American to full and equal sharing responsibilities and rewards of citizenship. Nearly 50 years later, the black family has all but collapsed while federal government continues to reward irresponsible citizenship. That's what he sees, right? He lives in the neighborhood. I think he's from Philadelphia, so you can talk to him and see what he needs. But I grew up in the neighborhood. I know I work with Reverend Christian. Reverend Christian said now in her church, she, 2 decades ago, she said the grandparents would take care of the children. She says now there's not even any more grandparents to take care of the children in her neighborhood anymore. So it's a big problem. How do we solve it? Here's what I think. The only thing that will stop the bad policing is good parenting. The only thing that's going to stop all the bad policing in those areas, people, Colin Kaepernick is arguing the policing is no good, they're brutal, and Marshawn Lynch and all those millionaire athletes complain about the police. The problem isn't the police, the problem is there's no good parenting. Good parenting will change everything. Good parenting will change everything. And by the way, I'm an eyewitness to that, right? Once again, where there is no vision, no larger idea of what life can be like, then there's only misery and suffering, the people perish. So what's our goal? What's our goal? What's my goal? What's my witness? I thought I'd share that with you and with the Reverend Dr. Larry Krishnick. Catholics have the Holy Father, right? They call him Il Papa, which has nothing to do with potatoes. It means papa, like father, right? It means they have their Holy Father. They also have Mother Teresa, Holy Mother. Chemists have Priestley. You know how that works into this conversation? He's considered the father of modern chemistry. So chemists have their father, popes have their father. Who do we have? We have True Mother. We have our own lady that we call True Mother, right? So they all have their fathers and their mothers. We have our mother. Is that all right? Does that make sense? And here's what she says. True Mother's going to go to Africa soon. She was in the United States. I'm going to share that. But she's going to go to Africa, and they're going to have a UPF Africa Summit in 2018. What are they going to talk about? You know what she's going to preach there? She's going to preach true family values. And I'll tell you, and I'll share this with you because this was a big deal for our church for a long time. In Uganda, for a brief period, after Idi Amin was dethroned, he was offered the Tyrant Retirement Program, which he took. Our church members taught what was called the ABC, abstinence, be monogamous, or use condoms at least. The approach was developed in response to the growing epidemic of HIV/AIDS in Africa and prevent the spread of other sexually transmitted diseases. This approach, what is it? It's true family values. It's what we always taught. True family values, be absent until marriage, and then when you're married, be monogamous. Be true and loyal to one another, right? It changed Uganda. Right? This approach has been credited by some with the falling numbers of those infected with AIDS in Uganda, Kenya, and Zimbabwe, among others. From 1990 to 2001, the percentage of Ugandans living with AIDS fell from 15% to only 5%. Do you know how many Ugandans there are? Anybody know? 41.6 million. I'll save you the time. So the difference is 10% of the population, right? If there's 41.6 million, how many people's lives were saved from AIDS? So 10%, how many people's lives were saved from AIDS? 4 million, right? So by our church teaching true family values in Uganda, Kenya, and other places, what did it do? It literally saved millions upon millions of lives, and not only their lives, but their children's lives and their grandchildren's lives. Isn't that amazing? So when mother go, and by the way, the president after Idi Amin took the blessing. Our church members blessed him and his whole government, and it changed their whole country, right? So that's pretty amazing, actually, right? So they teach. This follows believed to be a result from employment of the ABC approach, especially reduction in the number of sex partners, called zero grazing in Uganda. And I had other pictures, but I'm running out of time already. Okay, anyway, so mother's going to go and teach that to Africa, which will change and improve their way of life. It'll save millions of people's lives all over the world if we follow true family values. This is her speech to Americans, January 15th, 2018. True mother. She said this nation, meaning America, United States of America, must bring 2,000 years of providential Christian history to a good conclusion. Not a bad conclusion, a good conclusion. Well, I'll show you, and I'm going to show you what that conclusion is in a few minutes. There is no doubt that this country has been blessed by God, right? She says we're blessed not because Americans are smarter than everybody else, but because of the providential history of Christianity in the United States of America. And I'll show you how that works. Exactly, and I'll show you where America comes from. Exactly almost 501 years ago, right? This is 2018, 15, 17, Martin Luther rebelled against the Catholic Church. 501 years ago, the Christian church began that would flourish as the American dream. Where did it begin? In Germany, right? From Oxford Religious Encyclopedia, so you can look this up if you want to. 1517, Martin Luther, German Catholic monk, broke with the Catholic Church. What did he teach? What was his primary teaching that was different from the Catholic Church? It's a rhetorical question. I'll give you the answer. This is from the Oxford Religious Encyclopedia. Marriage was at the heart of Martin Luther's break with Rome and the Reformation that followed. He preached sermons praising marriage beginning in 1519, and several years later wrote his first formal treatise attacking the value of vows of celibacy and arguing that marriage was the best Christian life. You'll see how that changes the world that we live in today, right? Okay, in 1525, that's 8 years after his break with the Catholic Church. In 1525, he followed his words by deeds and married a nun who had fled her convent, Katharina von Bora. What started as a marriage of principle and mutual esteem became one of affection and deep emotional bonds. They thought, well, we're just going to do this because God told us to get married, right? But then they actually began to love each other. Luther continued to attack the celibate life of Catholic clergy and nuns and to celebrate marriage as a godly estate through his career. He didn't do mass wedding ceremonies, but almost. He blessed all the clergy in his church, right? In sermons, formal treatises, lectures, advice manuals, letters, comments on legal cases, and casual conversation. So this was Martin Luther in Germany. What happened? I'll show you how it became the United States. In all of these, he both praised marriage and family. So what happened was the three purposes of marriage in the same order of importance. It goes like this. The procreation of children. This is what he would teach. Procreation and protection of children, which we're going to talk a lot about today. So the meaning of marriage is first, to protect the family, to protect, love, and raise children. 2, the avoidance of sin. Don't commit adultery. Adultery just causes unbelievable violence. On television it doesn't, but in real life it causes unbelievable violence, not only to the perpetrator, but to the victim of adultery and to the children of adulterous relationships. It's a horrible thing. Number 3, the mutual help and companionship, actually love between husband and wife. That's the ideal. Okay, so where does he get his ideas from? Looks like this. So it goes like this. Mark. Some Pharisees came and tested Jesus by asking, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife? Jesus said this. But at the beginning of creation, so this is the dream of creation. We say this is the dream of creation. At the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. Okay. Here, I'm going to diverge just a little bit. To Jesus, this was life and death. You know why? Because when Mary became pregnant by the Holy Spirit, what happened? Joseph was going to divorce her. Remember? He was going to divorce her. If he had divorced her, she would have been stoned to death. Right? So you have to realize, to Jesus, this is really personal. This is the salvation of his life in the womb, right? This is the salvation of his mother's life. Joseph, don't divorce her. Marry her. Right? Isn't that amazing? Yeah. So to Jesus is very important. So then, over many long years, people said, well, this is patriarchy. This is no good. This means that men have the right to beat their wives, right? Usually when I go and preach this in other churches, that's the first thing they say. Does that mean you can't get divorced if your husband's beating you? No, it doesn't mean that at all. Number one, you have to understand all the rest of Jesus' words too. For example, Jesus says, love each other as I have loved you. From the book of Ephesians, it goes like this, right? In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. You don't beat the snot out of your own body with a 2x4, right? No. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they feed and care for their own body, don't you? You care about yourself. When you're hungry, you want to eat something, and you'll work hard to eat, right? Just as Christ does the church, for we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. See, the same. The same from Genesis, same in Jesus' words. It's the same story all throughout the Gospels and letters. So let's continue, right? So Martin Luther is teaching this. As cities and territories in Germany and then beyond become Protestant, they passed marriage ordinances and established institutions to regulate marriage. No more polygamy. You can't just abandon your wife and children. That's 100% against the law, right? They're very strict about that. You cannot abandon your children. Turning to Luther for advice on such issues as divorce, desertion. Desertion is a horrible, evil thing. It means a husband deserts the wife and children and just leaves them to poverty, to illness, to whatever they do, right? It's a big problem in the neighborhoods right now, desertion, right? Secret engagements and parental consent. In making their decisions, judges slowly apply the new Protestant ideas about marriage, which people also learned about through sermons, artwork, and pamphlets. So this became like a central issue of the Protestant church and part of why America is blessed today. So let's keep going. Mother says, when the time for true parents' advent drew near, heaven blessed the democratic nation of the United States to lay the foundation for true parents' advent. How were we blessed? I'm going to show you. Heaven worked to establish an environment for the returning Messiah to be welcomed. Within a relatively short period of 200 years, the United States developed into a democratic nation that currently moves the world. What's the foundation of that power? We say that power is a spiritual power. That power is a spiritual power because America became good and ideally remains good. And this is why. Okay. History of Protestantism in the United States. What happened? Right? Okay. From the Wikipedia. You can just look up history of Protestantism. This is what happened. Colonists from Northern Europe, right? From Protestant Northern Europe, who had all these same ideas about marriage, came to the United States and brought those same ideas here. Protestantism to Plymouth Colony, Massachusetts, Bay Colony, New Netherlands, really New York City, Virginia Colony, and Carolina Colony. The first arrivals were adherents to Lutheranism, Presbyterianism, Anglicanism, Congregationalism, Quakerism, Anabaptism, and the Moravian Church from British, German, Dutch, and Nordic stock. America emerged as a Protestant majority nation with significant minorities of Roman Catholics and Jews. So what does that mean? It means that America became a nation of family values. That is, one man, one woman marriage, and husband has to stay, must stay to take care of the wife and children. If the woman becomes pregnant, the father must stay and take care of the children, right? That's a law. And it became an emotional, societal law for Americans, right? Don't people believe that? I think we would all believe it. Absolutely, that's true. It wasn't true for Romans. It wasn't true for Greeks or Egyptians or other people. It wasn't true, by the way. As cities and territories of the United States of America and then beyond became Protestant, they passed marriage ordinances and established institutions to regulate marriage. Same, following Martin Luther, who followed Jesus Christ. So that's how we became the most powerful nation on earth, because when children are taken care of by their parents, they can get educations, they can study, they have food, all those different kinds of things. And you can read about all the leaders of America. That's what happened to them. You know, I always say the Wright brothers had a Christian father, Christian mother, took care of them, they invented airplanes. And same thing with, anyway, all of them. I'm not going to talk about them today. The 2,000-year history of Christianity and the 4,000-year history of Judaism must end with the conclusion and transformation of what we call true family values. Just marriage, patriarchal marriage, is not the end, is not the conclusion. What we want is true families, true three-generation families, right? So when you look at the 4,000-year history of Judaism and the 2,000-year Christianity, what do we see? It begins with, of course, Abraham. Abram, son of an idol maker, and Sarah made conditions of faith and loyalty to God and to each other. Sarah and Abraham were loyal to each other, right? The first one man, one woman relationship, which we call the formation stage of restoration of Adam and Eve, right? Then they become the 12 tribes of Israel, are blessed to grow. They ended up in Egypt and prayed to the God of their grandfathers. And they made conditions for a vertical relationship with God. That is circumcision, offerings of prayer. They cried out to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God of their grandfathers, and they were saved from slavery in Egypt, right? That's Jewish history. But then what happened? Moses came and brought conditions. He brought the law and the Torah, the Ten Commandments. Center of the Ten Commandments are what? Thou shalt not commit adultery, right? It's in the middle. Thou shalt honor thy father and mother. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Family values is preached from the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Don't commit adultery. All those are in there, right? And then it continued until Jesus, the Son of God, brought the age of love and rebirth through the Holy Spirit, through baptism, the gospel, and the Christian church. And the ideas were these marriage ideas that he began to love children, love each other. Husbands love their wives as they love their own body. Wives love their husbands with deep respect. Both take care and raise your children because the children are what the kingdom of heaven is made out of. That's Christianity, right? We say after 2,000 years, to conclude Christianity, to make a good conclusion of the 2,000-year history of Christianity, Jesus Christ called Reverend Moon to create what we call true family values, to create a different idea of the family, a more complete and perfected idea of the family, right? So, Reverend Mrs. Moon received the title of true parents. That is, they stand in the position of an Adam and Eve on a restored level. And what does that mean? It means this. Reverend Mrs. Moon bring, by the authority of Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit, the offer of marriage blessing ceremony, divine principle, and the truth of 3-generation families. This now should become what Christianity is. Christianity should teach 3-generation families of true love, where grandparents, parents, children, uncles and aunties, brothers and sisters create one family under God. That's what's happening. And if we do that, that will bring the end of time, the end of the old world, and all things new. The kingdom of heaven where God dwells, where there'll be no more mourning or pain. God himself will wipe away every tear, and people will express their full potential as human beings. So let me do. Back in 1965, when the illegitimate birth rate, remember you were reading that? Illegitimate birth rate was beginning to grow. Adultery was becoming rampant. Divorce in the United States was becoming rampant. What happened? We say Reverend Moon came. Reverend Moon came and he said, look, we have to stand like the dark horse, right? No one thinks we're going to win. But we're going to rent Madison Square Garden and we're going to bless in marriage 4,000 young men and women who want to say God is the most important factor in our lives and we will never come apart. We're going to love each other. We're going to raise loving children in the name of God, right? The dark horse. That's us. Sort of like the 300 Spartans. Giant Persian army, 1 million Persians bearing down on them. Nevertheless, they said, we'll stand here in full public and make our vows before God himself. Isn't that right? And then, of course, Reverend Moon continued. And then in 2001, he blessed many, many, many other Christian leaders, not just our own church, but Christian leaders and other religious leaders as well. Because why? Because this is the conclusion of the age. Conclusion of Christianity is true family values, right? And then this was in 2002. He did another one with many other Christian leaders, Native Americans, African Americans, because we also believe strongly that all races are really just one race. There's only one human race. There's no differences just because you're a different color, right? There's no differences. And so he kept doing this. He kept blessing people, blessing marriage, and teaching everywhere he went. He was teaching family values, true family values, love each other, husband and wife, don't commit adultery. All the same lessons from the beginning of time, right? It's God's dream. It's God's dream, right? And then it just kept getting bigger and bigger, and then bigger and bigger. And then this was RFK Stadium, 1997. What was it? 3.6 million couple blessing? Anyway, 3.6 million couple blessing. This was Many brothers and sisters went to this, right? I went. I know Andy went. Sadell went. I'm sure Toshiko went. Many brothers and sisters went to support this program, right? Rosa went. We all went because we wanted to support the idea of true family values. True family values is what's going to save people's lives. True family values is going to save your children's life and your children's children's life. And it's going to change the world to become a better, more loving, more peaceful place. So this is our cause and this is our witness. The question is, where are we now? Right? After all those giant blessings, Father passed to the spirit world. Before he passed, though, when he was 88 to 90 years old, he gave what he called the peace messages. And I'm going to read some of those peace messages to you and how they will affect our world. Okay, number one. First, in the history of the providence and resurrection, the figures who took charge of certain responsibilities in their respective missions, though they could not fully carry out their portions of responsibility, that is, Abraham and Sarah, they could only go so far. Jacob and Esau could only go so far, and David could only go so far. Even Jesus could only go so far. That's why he had to return. He wanted to do more, and so he's going to return, right? However, they loyally offered their best for the sake of God's will. In proportion to their accomplishments, they were able to broaden the base in which fallen men could open their relationship to God. That's who we are. What are we doing here? Even though we're a small group that John Kinney called the Dark Horse Group, anyhow, we're like the 300 Spartans, right? We're just a small group who 100% believe in true family values. And no matter what, won't give up on our beliefs. That's valuable. That's really valuable. Don't give up on our beliefs. It doesn't matter, right? It says, as time goes by, people of succeeding generations can enjoy more benefit from their ages according to the providence of restoration. The providence of resurrection, therefore, is carried out according to the benefits of the age. So us, the first line of blessed couples in the world, we're here, right? And we're not giving up, and we're not going away. And that will open the door eventually to thousands, millions, and eventually billions of other people to receive the blessing. Okay. What should have happened in God's principle creation, Adam and Eve should have grown in God's love, right? Should have been obvious. Receiving life elements of love and truth and living in a rich spiritual atmosphere. They would grow to maturity with God, then blessed in marriage by God. They would have given birth to children. God would have been in the position of grandparent to his own grandchildren, of Cain and Abel, of their children. The grandchildren would have received love and truth from not only Adam and Eve, but from God himself. That's what we're trying to establish. When grandchildren receive that much love, they will change and come home to God. God and true parents, Adam and Eve, right? And lived in the rich spiritual atmosphere of Eden. Then they would have had children who would have had true grandparents that are on God, true parents and true uncles and aunts, right? And then we would establish a tribe of true love. That's what we're trying to accomplish, by the way. That's what we're trying to accomplish. No matter where you are in this part, are you, I always say, are you an uncle? Are you an aunt? Are you a parent? Are you a grandparent? You're someplace in, are you a child? You could just be a child. You don't have to be a parent or a grandparent yet. You might just be a child. But you have to understand the vision. If you don't have the vision, you may perish if you don't understand the vision. So that's what we're trying to do. That's what I'm trying to show is the vision of God's hope for the world. So who's this sermon for? Our ACLC religious leaders, because they need to see the vision. They need to know this vision of God's will. Family Federation for Heavenly America, that's us now. For young families, you young families need to understand life is hard, right? Life is hard. If you lose track of the vision, you may think it's too hard. You might think it's too hard. So you have to know the vision, right? Young adults looking to begin a family, etc. Young adults who are not married yet, who are not young families yet. You have to have a vision of what you're going to do. Why are you going to get married? Why are you going to have children someday? You have to understand the vision in the large scheme of things, right? And for grandparents, for uncles and aunts, God bless you. You have to know what you're doing. What's your position in relationship to your grandchildren? You should be the source of true, unconditional love for your grandchildren, right? For uncles and aunties, you could be guardian angels to young couples and to children and grandchildren. That's your job. If you're not actually a parent or a grandparent, then be a guardian angel. Be someone who supports parents, grandparents and grandchildren. Right? So we are witnessing a true love in a family setting. This is from the autobiography of Reverend Moon. I love these stories. These are the last words he gave to mankind. He said, these are my last words to you. I'm 88. These happened from 88 until 1990, 91. He passed away. World peace is not such a huge undertaking. It takes peaceful families to create peaceful societies and eliminate conflict among countries. This will lead to world peace. This shows the importance of families that are intact and the immense responsibilities such families must bear. The thinking that says it's enough to live well and that my family lives well is completely alien to me. We have to not just live for the sake of our family, but have a broader vision of what life is all about, right? He says, Reverend Moon says, the family is a place where we receive true love and learn true love. Children who do not receive true love when they are young live their entire lives hungering for love and suffer emotional pain. Right? Not only that, they don't have the opportunity to learn the lofty moral duties that they must fulfill for the family and society. True love is a value that cannot be learned any place other than the family. Actually, you can. Church. You can go to church, by the way. But family is the best ideal place, especially for little kids, to automatically learn. Automatically, it's ingrained in them to be generous, to kind, to take care of little brothers and sisters, to be loved, and to give love. Right? He says a person can live in a wonderful house and eat exotic foods from the mountains and the oceans. But if he has no parents, there will be a large void in his heart. A person who has grown up without receiving parental love has a loneliness and emptiness in his heart that cannot be filled with anything else. All the young men and women, you will have their children someday. You must learn how to love each other as husband and wife substantially, and learn how to love your children substantially. It's so important. It's a source of everything, right? Then what is true love? True love gives, forgets that it has given, and continues to give without ceasing. True love gives joyfully. We find it in the joyful and loving heart of a mother who cradles her baby in her arms and nurses it at her breast. True love is sacrificial love, as with filial son who gains his greatest satisfaction through helping his parents. When we are bound together in true love, we can be together forever, continually rejoicing in each other's company. The attraction of true love brings all things in the universe to our feet. Even God will come and dwell there. That's the idea. Right? If you're an adult person and two people are fighting with each other, do you want to go watch television with them? No, of course not. Neither does God, by the way. Neither does God. If two people are in love and really happy and they're laughing and joyfully eating popcorn, watching a movie, do you want to go watch a movie with them? Yeah, let's eat popcorn and watch a movie. Let's have fun together. Same with God. It's not different. So we say in this modern age, Mother said we have to become better than we've ever become in the past. I think that that's really true. And this is why I'm going to give this part of the sermon, because I think we should understand that the ideas that Reverend Moon had are 100% backed up by the modern scientific community. Science always changes, by the way. They think this today and then they think that tomorrow. So I'm going to show some changes. This is he's not a reverend, Dr. Desmond Morris. He wrote a book called The Naked Ape. Anybody ever read that one? Just me? No, I'm crazy. Yeah, I know. He's going to publish his own baby care guide next week because he said too many help books for parents advocated unnatural and brutal child care techniques. Brutal. He says, I'm very angry that baby books have recently begun repeating the unnatural dictates from so-called child care experts, exclamation points, and being sarcastic, of the past, who ordered mothers never to hug or kiss their babies and ignore them even if they cried, said Morris. I nearly died when I was just a few months old thanks to a baby book, so I feel very strongly about it. You could say I have personal axe to grind against those crazy materialist, behavioralist scientists. Morris was born in 1928 when the theories of American baby expert John Watson were in vogue. 1928. Watson, who believed parents should break the spirit of their infants in the same way that traders tame a horse. We don't break horses either anymore, right? Anyhow, called for babies to be put outside in their prams regardless of the weather and ignored if they cried. His idea was, how do you train a person to be independent? Just leave them outside until they stop crying, then they'll be independent. Babies reared under Watson's severe regime often suffered, and as a baby I belonged to that generation, said Morris. Left crying in my pram in the harsh east wind, I developed double pneumonia and nearly died. After that, my mother decided to abandon the teachings of the day and trust to her maternal instincts. Believe me, Believe me, you think that this is strange to be happening in the 20s and 30s. It was worse. Spartans used to put babies on a rock. And if they didn't die, they were strong enough to join the community. Otherwise, they would die, right? That's what they thought was the best thing to do with a kid. This goes on through all human history because people didn't know. Here's John Watson. John Broadus Watson was an American psychologist, established a psychological school of behavioralism, right? It's a materialist idea that you're an animal and that whatever you're rewarded, that's what you'll continue to do. So if you cry and somebody hugs you, then you'll just continue to cry, right? He had no idea what love is or sensitivity. A review of general psychology survey published in 2002 ranked Watson as the 17th most cited psychologist in the 20th century. Isn't that amazing? And those were his ideas. Watson wrote the book Psychological Care of Infant and Child in 1928. In his book, he warns against the inevitable dangers of a mother providing too much love and affection. Crazy people, behavioralists, right? Next time you're reading a behavioralist, remember that. Watson explains that love, along with everything else in the behavior side of the world, is conditioned. John Watson told parents that babies needed to learn to sleep on a regular schedule and that picking them up and holding them whenever they cried would only teach them to cry more and not to sleep through the night. They were told to feed their children on a regular schedule, that they should not pick them up, kiss them, or hug them, because that would only prepare them. That would not prepare them to be strong, independent individuals in a harsh world. And by the way, this happened. Remember Marcus Beresford? This happened to Marcus Beresford, by the way. Anyway, he's on the other side now, so you can't ask him. But I remember him telling me those things. This is a wilting plant, right? Behaviorist John Watson thinks this plant is not doing well. Perhaps it needs a little bit more punishment, right? Right? This is the old ideas, right? We now know, you need a sensitive heart to raise plants, right? This was 50s parenting. This is when I was a kid. The kid's not getting good grades in school. Spank him harder, as if that's going to make you smarter. Sorry, people really believe this. When kids came home with bad report cards, they got a beating. In all my neighborhood, that happened, right? Because of this kind of crazy idea. Anyhow, in the 21st century, we realize the plant needs better nutrition, more or less water, more or less sunlight. That is, we understand that the plant has needs, and if you fulfill the needs of the plant, it's going to grow very well, right? It's going to flourish. Same thing with human babies. We don't think if they don't do well in school, beat them, right? We think, we'll find them a tutor, help them, train them, spend more time with them, etc., right? Likewise, Jesus came to teach us that the world needs more love, that children need more love. Children are what the kingdom of heaven is made out of, right? If you read about plants, you can read The Secret Life of Plants. Plants respond to love. Findhorn Garden book, one of my favorite books. Actually, some of the members of our church in England came from the Findhorn Garden. And what they realized, they grew a garden up in Scotland in sandy, cold, miserable soil. But they learned how to mulch, how to do things. They would pray and talk to the plants, and they would be sensitive to the plants, and they grew incredible vegetables. It became a worldwide phenomenon, that they can grow these incredible vegetables in a miserable, sandy soil, and they did very well. He said, why? Because we became sensitive to plants. We loved the plants, and the plants returned love to us, right? That's the real nature of the world. That's how the real nature of the world should be. All these animals love each other, right? Parental love, cats love each other. Penguins love each other. Wolves love each other. If someone should suggest, if someone should suggest, no one would expect a wolf cub to survive without the love and protection of the cub's parents, right? Right? If you look at wolves, or if you look at whatever the animal is, if you said, we're going to take the puppy away from these wolves and just put him in the forest, and then he'll be a stronger and smarter and a tougher wolf. It's completely wrong. Same with children. Same with penguins. If penguins don't have penguin parents to take care of them, they're going to die. They're going to freeze to death in 10 seconds. And same thing with all the other animals, right? No, we wouldn't suggest any animal doesn't need their parents. We would suggest every creature in nature needs his parents. Is that crazy science? No. Every naturalist, every environmentalist would say exactly the same thing, that these creatures need love. Our universe is filled with love. Just hold a puppy or a kitten or a cat, a colt, or train and love a dog. If you had experience with animals, you know animals return love. The universe is filled with love. so human life, human families should be filled with love, right? However, no one would suggest to take a wolf away from his parents, but a wolf is full grown in just 1 year, right? A wolf is a full grown wolf. He's on a hunting trip with his parents in just 1 year. Humans are the most sensitive of all creatures on earth. It takes more than 20 years to raise a human being to maturity, and even then you're usually probably only like 1/3 of the way there, right? I thought I'd get a little more applause than that. Anyhow, how come? Why? Because humans need to receive love and truth more than any other living creature. We need to receive love and truth more than any other living creature. How come? Because we're supposed to be the mediators between all the other creatures, all the other animals, and God, right? Hippos don't make other animals be pets. Wolves don't make other animals be pets, right? Only humans make pets. Only other humans make pets. So science of true love goes like this. Seeing the full potential of human beings in the 21st century, right? The full potential of human beings will not come from artificial intelligence or smarter computers. It will come from true love in true families. When human beings love their families fully, when grandparents, parents, children, uncles, aunts, the whole tribe loves children fully, we're going to see the full potential of human beings erupt out of creation. We'll be shocked. How can people be so smart? How can they do such good things, right? You'll see. This is from Sir John Bowlby, and I wanted to teach you this because it's really important. 1949, Sir John Bowlby's early work on the delinquent and affectionate children. What he did, he's a psychologist, and his first job as a psychologist was to understand delinquent children. You can read a book he wrote, it's called 99 Thieves. How he studied these 99 thieves in a juvenile delinquency reform school, and he discovered that they all had broken families or deserted fathers or all those different kinds of things happened to them. And he came to the conclusion that infant and young child should experience a warm, intimate, and continuous relationship with his mother or permanent mother substitute in which both find satisfaction and enjoyment, and that not to do so may have significant and irreversible mental health consequences, plus criminal behavior. He understood without the family, just like Reverend Moon said, without the family to surround and protect a child, when that hungry, remember Reverend Moon said, when you don't have parental love, you have this hunger that you can't get it satisfied. So you're always looking for love in all the wrong places. That's what happens, right? And so John Bowlby, a scientist, opposite of Dr. Watson, right? Opposite, came to the conclusion that children absolutely need love or they're going to have problems for the rest of their life. Reverend Moon says the family is a place where we can receive true love and learn true love. Children who do not receive true love when they were young live their entire lives hungering for love and suffer emotional pain. Not only that, they don't have the opportunity to learn the lofty moral duties that they must fulfill for the family society. True love is a value that cannot be learned any other place than in the family. That's what, by the way, that's what Dr. John Bowlby says. That's what he teaches. That's science. That's modern science. Family is the best place for children to learn true love, right? Here's another book. Dr. Sears, a pediatrician who studied Dr. Bowlby, he came up with what's called the baby book. Any young person who's thinking about a family, you got to read Dr. Sears. This is science and love. He's a Christian medical doctor who has 8 children, raised them all with these scientific principles, and his children are doing great. If you want your children to do great, you have to plan. You have to plan to have children and how you're going to raise them. How you're going to create a loving family with your children. You can't just, fall off a log and then it happens. You have to plan and understand a strategy for true love, right? We say from the Divine Principle book, for the growth and perfection of the spirit man, it needs nourishment. Basically, God's love. This is like the love of parents. Love of parents substitutes for the love of God on earth until you can find your own personal relationship with God, right? It's the love of parents, right? Peace message number 10. We find it in the joyful and loving heart of a mother who cradles her baby in her arms and nurses it at her breast. So when the mother loves the baby, that baby's not just getting food, not just getting proteins and sugars and fats, he's getting love. Love is going directly from the mother into the spirit of the baby. And so the baby is not only growing physically, but growing emotionally as well, right? True love is sacrificial love, as with a filial son who gains his greatest satisfaction through helping his parents. When we are bound together in true love, when your family is bound together in true love, we can live together forever. This is the idea of eternity in the kingdom of heaven. If you love each other 100%, you're going to go to heaven together. That's what heaven is. So that's why Reverend Moon would do this no matter what. Would do this no matter what he would teach. Right? All these things, bonding at birth and a belief in the language value of baby's cries. This is really important that we become sensitive, right? Dr. Watson said you should become insensitive to the cries of your child, right? Dr. Bowlby said you must become sensitive to the cries of your child. Why is he crying? What's making your baby uncomfortable? And how does the baby feel comfort and protection from you? When the children is afraid because there's a monster under the bed or whatever it happens to be, and you comfort that child and hold that child, the child will slowly learn, oh, there's no monster there. Besides, even if there was, Dad would tear him to pieces, right? Dad would tear him to pieces. Early experiences with caregivers gradually give rise to a system of thoughts, memories, beliefs, expectations, emotions, and behaviors about the self and others. This is what we call spiritual growth. And it comes from what? Mothers and fathers loving their children. Spiritual growth comes from receiving love and receiving truth. There's no monster under the bed, kid. And if there was, I'd tear him to pieces anyhow. So, Reverend Moon, no matter how much a man and woman may love each other, a complete and happy family must have parents who act as a protective shield around the home. And there must be at least one child for the parents to love. When a family is protected, it becomes a nesting place for happiness. When children feel, when I'm here at home, I'm loved, I'm protected, I don't care about the people outside. I'm here, I'm a human being. Here I'm respected, I'm loved, right? Even a person with great success in society will have an unhappy family if this protection collapses. The basis of love is a heart that sacrifices everything for the sake of the other. The reason parental love is true love is that parents are willing to give everything to their children, and when they have given everything, they want to give even more. Parents who love their children not even remember how much they gave, right? And it's hard to find somebody like that in life besides your parents. Proverbs 22:6, train the young in the way they should go, even when old, they will not swerve from it. Raise them with love, and they'll become loving people. Raise them with heart, love, protection, they'll become artistic, loving, protective people. Bowlby, for infants and toddlers, the set goal of the attachment behavioral system is to maintain or achieve proximity to attachment figures, usually the parents. Children need to see and know they can depend on their parents' love, loyalty, and protection. That's what allows them to be independent. Then they can be brave. See what love the Father has bestowed on us that we may be called the children of God. Yet so we are. The reason the world does not know us is that it did not know Him, right? This is the idea. There are many names for the Creator, right? All kinds of religions have different names, Brahmin, whatever. However, we call the Creator Abba, Father, the true parent of all creation. That's our vision. That's our vision. That's the meaning of religion or reality to us. Let's skip that one. Spirit man consists of spirit mind and spirit body. The spirit mind is subject and controls the spirit body, which is object. Spirit mind is the most valuable part of man, is a place where God can live. Because of this, man becomes the son of God and the Lord of all creation. Because God breathed His Spirit into you. But in order to get there, it's like anything. Your body, in order to grow up, has to have proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, all those different kinds of things, right? If you miss those, your body won't grow to its full potential. It's the same. If you don't receive love, you don't receive truth, your spiritual body will not grow to its full potential. You cannot grow to become a true child of God, a completed, full potential child of God. And that's our vision. That's our vision for mankind. The spirit man gives spirit elements to the physical man. These are the elements to produce spiritual joy or to give new energy to the physical man. This is what happens to us. Like I always say, when we love each other, when we take care of each other, people who are sick get better, right? We know that's science. People who are sick, if they receive love and kindness and calls and phone calls and we talk to them, then they get better faster. Why? Because the spiritual body is receiving love and giving life elements to the physical body, healing the physical body. Reverend Moon says, when seeking after the lost original family, you should set out from the position of perfected Adam. position of the perfected Jesus and the position representing the perfected second coming of the Lord. God will dwell in such a family. That family will be one of 3 generations, grandparents, parents, and children, living in harmony. Parents and children will serve and attend the grandparents because they represent the family's ancestors, its historical root. The family sets the pattern for living together in harmony. The family wherein parents and children love and respect each other, husband and wife are grounded in mutual trust and love. Brothers and sisters trust and rely on each other and all live together as one is the model. That's our goal. That's our vision, ideal family. This means that you need to establish a true family wherein the stem of true love emerges from the root of true love and bears the fruit of true love. Such families contain the living root of history and the roots of the kingdom of heaven. In such families, the kingdom of heaven on earth takes root. They are the soil in which God's everlasting kingship is firmly planted. The grandparents, parents, and children represent the roots of the past, present, and future, respectively. The root of the past represents the spirit world. The root of the present is the palace representing the world today. And the root of the future establishes the grandsons and granddaughters as princes and princesses. Through such a family, you erect a palace of peace representing the harmony of the 2 worlds, the spirit world and the physical world on earth. So this is what it means, right? We believe this is the growth. Like I said, this is the growth, and this is the conclusion of the 4,000 years of Judaism and the 2,000 years of Christianity. Amen? Amen. Amen. Thank you very much. I hope that was good to you.